Hey folks, welcome to an awesome event. Today we have 50 folks joining in. Cool. So we are going to talk about working remotely, and we have Kabir. Kabir is a senior software engineer who has been operating remotely from a village near Dhamshala for over 2 years now. And I'll hand over to Kabir now to set the expectations from what should you expect and what should you not from this session. I that's Dharmshala. Okay, Chidan says the person who always provides me his guidance, one and only Kabir. That's cool. Okay, so quick context about DX Club. We normally talk about the non-tech aspects of our jobs. So working remotely is like a non-tech aspect. If you'd like to have a session on any such related or any non-tech topic, just tag us on Twitter and let us know and we'll make it happen. I've dropped the handle in the chat. Also, the structure of today's session is Kabir has some pointers to share, and once that is done, I think it should take about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll open the flow for Q&A. I'm dropping a Slido link in the chat, so you can post your questions there, and you can also vote on the questions that you want Kabir to answer. And yeah, over to you, Kabir.
Okay. Hello all. I see right now we are at 54, which is good. Because both me and Swapnil, we didn't expect such a huge turnout. We thought that, we would have maybe like 25 to 40 people. But apparently, if I see the latest values, it is how many people registered? 176. 176 have registered, which was unexpected for both me and Swapnil. We were thinking whether should we get paid in advance, but
Oh,
yeah. So okay, so yeah, that was that. So anyways, it's good. I think our participants 54 to be 100, and the people who couldn't join, we are going to share a recording later on. So that is good. All right. So let's start. Let me just share. I don't need to share the screen right now. Okay, cool. So, hi all. As Swapnil said, my name is Kabir. I have been working remotely. I wouldn't say working. I've been operating remotely out of the mountains for the past 2 years. Precisely, I think, yeah, it has just been 2 years. I first came to Dharamshala in 12th November 2019. So it's 2 years, 2 days. All right. So so in this talk, I'll tell about firstly about what I'm going to be covering all. So one very good big disclaimer, which me and Swapnil realized that when he put out the description, it felt that this talk is going to be about, even how to find a remote job and, try to move to a lifestyle. This talk is not going to be about that. This talk is going to be about
भाई लड़का सा
say
ये
that
तो अभी देख
uh, yeah, Swapnil, just mute people like who like speak in between. So yeah. Um, yeah, so this talk is going to be about knowing how to transition from a office, going person to a remote worker. This is like this talk assumes that you already have a remote job or uska whatever you are about finding the remote job, you will take care of it yourself. And this talk is going to be only about giving pointers about how to approach a remote lifestyle. Like what are the best do's and don'ts that you need to do in order to maximize or effectively be a remote worker. Because it's a huge shift, right? From going to office daily, and right now you're just sitting from working from home. So what are the things that you have to do, and how you have to make the best use of it. All right. Um, okay. And second. Okay, so I'll start the talk by saying how I ended up being a remote worker. So to give some context, so I graduated college in about 2013. I mean, I didn't graduate. I passed off. I mean, I'm supposed to graduate in 2013, but then I did had some backlogs or something. So I had like so I actually graduated in 2014 only. So I had 1 year, 2013, 2014. I was giving my papers. So I couldn't get a job anywhere. And again, since I had a lot of backlogs, it's obvious I didn't get placed or anything. In fact, my college was a really good college. It's like everyone gets placed, and I was the only guy in my college not to get in my class not to get placed. So I was a black sheep. So in this year from 2013 to 2014 itself, since I couldn't kind of get a job anywhere and my time was spent just in what you call going and attending exams and attending classes so I could clear my backlogs, I decided to work for a startup. Okay, and that startup was it was a really small startup. It was even a bootstrap startup. In fact, I don't even know whether to call it a startup. It had only 3 employees, including me. So it was one of my friend's brother startup. He wanted to run a company wherein he said that he wanted someone to create an Android app, okay, for his product. The product was, I don't think the company exists anymore, but yeah, the product was, it was a website in which, think of it like a CRM for schools. So the website literally is a parent can log into the website and then he's given a username password. And then once he logs in, he can see his son's attendance, his test scores, his schedules. Basically, you're planning to digitize the entire need for a PTM, parent teacher meeting. Like without the parent going to the school, he should just by logging the website, he should be able to see everything about his son's or daughter's attendance or general progress. So i so there was there's one website developer who was making the website and there was me Android developer who was making the entire app. And then that time it was bootstrap startup working out of the founders home, so we didn't have an office. So it was pretty chill scenes. It was like either I come to that guy's office and work at his house, which is basically his bedroom, and work, or I can simply sit and work from home and I just mail my this thing. So that was my first twist with, I would say, remote work. That's not exactly remote work because the fact that I had to work remotely was because we didn't have an office. So if I just work from home and it's an online thing only, you just make the app and then mail me the APK, and maybe we can meet like once a week or something on the weekends to discuss something. And the rest of the stuff you can just send me mails or something like that, or you can just call me up on the phone or something. He said there wasn't a need for you to come to my home because the only thing is if you come to my home, you'll be doing the same thing that you'll be doing sitting from your home and working. So I said work that. So that 1 year, I kind of till I got my finished my uh, papers backlogs. I started off worked in a this company startup like that, and that was my first was remote work. Then once I did eventually get my degree, and then I could apply for actual jobs in 2014. Then I started going to office jobs. I worked in Chennai for a year in a company which was actually it was like a proper big company with like 80 employees or something, service based company, and it was quite far from my house also. In fact, I would say it took me the commute. I used to go by scooter, and it commute took me at least easily 1 hour, 1 hour each way. So that was a big shift. Again, even while I was doing that, the biggest thing I missed working at my previous company was that this commute, this 1 hour commute, was going and coming back. Because I remember in the morning, and I used to be in Chennai, and Chennai, if people know, it is a really hot and humid place. Just the commute used to tire me out, and I used to really even speak to my you know seniors in the company that can I work from home? I mean, but then at that time they didn't have a structure for that. The structure was that the systems that they had, they all were connected through some internal network in the company, and such that the systems will work only if you're connected to the office's network. And they had some data security or something. They said that they were okay with me working with this. I said I had a laptop. They said you can work, but then you will have to be connected to our office's Wi-Fi to work. So it's not possible for you to work from home. So it was okay, cool. And then yeah, then after that, then I just dropped this idea of remote work. I thought that this is not possible right now. India is not. I mean, either India is not that the ecosystem in India is not that mature to enable remote work right now, and also plus there are not many backers for that, and I guess people are going to be working from offices. And then after that, then after that, I just kept working a bunch of other companies into shift work for a startup in Bangalore. Again, I went to Bangalore, I shifted to Bangalore, And for the first, I think 6 months again, at a startup, I was the employee number one at that startup. We were working out of the founder's office. So for the first 6 months, I worked either from the founder's office or from my home. And then that also I kind of had a remote work experience there. And there Bangalore was more tech friendly, so there I could work remotely, and that was understood. And again, one of the other things that enabled me to work remotely was I was like one man army. So I was like the sole Android developer. Right? I wasn't a part of Android development team. I was the Android development team. So the bug started and ended with me. So there wasn't. I didn't have to be in a position where I had to like collaborate with other people a lot. So it was just that my seniors will tell me something, I'll code it, and then I'll give them the output. There was no one I had to collaborate or speak or even discuss stuff with. Maximum, I just have to discuss with the backend guy that hey, I need this API, I need that API, which I could kind of. I don't need to be physically in the same room as him to ask him. I could just send him a message or a mail or something and just say, hey, these I need these APIs and I need them. They should give me these data, and then that's it. So that was that, and so then that Bangalore startup, we worked for 6 months out of this remote thing, and then after that we shifted to a proper office because our team size grew. I think I left the company after 1.5 months, and when I was employee number one, and when I left the company, they had about 20 employees. And then after that I moved to a company in Delhi, a gaming company, GameZop. We worked out of in Delhi. We worked out of Connaught Place, a co-working place out of Connaught Place. That wasn't remote. That was a proper office kind of thing only. But I would say that that was kind of better because in Delhi that they have a metro system, so the transport didn't seem that much of a hassle, and metros are air conditioned and everything, so transport didn't seem that much draining. So I didn't feel that much of a push that I need to push for remote work or working from that. And plus, my office, it was like so it was in Connaught Place. For people who are in Delhi know that Connaught Place is the I don't know, the center of Delhi, the economic center. All the big shops are there. It is like one of the places where you go and chill out and not work. But my workplace was there, which was really lucky. And so I had all the facilities there, like the best restaurants, the best cafes to have lunch with, and uh, a lot of other facilities, which made it worth for me to go to office and work. Like I felt that it is more comfortable for me to go to office and work rather than work from my home. So there I didn't want remote work. I preferred going to office, and the commute was because of Delhi metro system. It was optimized. I think in 30 minutes I could reach my office, which is good. And then I worked in that company for about 2.5 years. I think at 2016 I joined, and then 2000 till 2019 January I worked there. And then in 2019 January I had to leave the company, and then after that I came back home to Chennai. I thought that okay, now I have some experience, about 5 years of experience. I can start freelancing. I could start. I have the credibility to offer my services as a freelance remote worker, and in that sense I could be remotely working. And I tried that out, like as in like I used to like put out my bids on different these websites like Upwork, Freelancer.com, and everything, and see if you can get a job. I even got a few contracts, and I even did them. But then the main issue was that I found out that again, like I said, the remote working ecosystem in India wasn't that mature. So there was a huge issue. For example, the client didn't have any how to say this didn't have any idea of what should be his boundaries. Like just because I'm working remotely from my home and it's a freelancing job, there wasn't anything like, oh, you only work 8 hours a day. It was like assume that, oh, you're available for me anytime and every time. He just pings me whenever he wants. Of course, not in my sleeping time, but there was no set schedule that I work only 8 hours a day or anything. And there was also not much clear distinction about what should be the pay or anything. Like I had a fixed pay like every month, which he used to give me, but there wasn't a clear discussion that, for this much amount of pay that I'll work only this much or something like that. So there was no concept of overtime and, actual time and everything. And I found that really hectic and really like draining. And there was no way in which I could even tell my client that, hey, I want to work only this hours. Because like I said, in India, there was no frame. The labor laws were not that. The labor laws did exist, but they existed only for non-remote workers. That is, in India, I think it's 50 hours per week. We are only allowed, a company is allowed to ask its employee to work or something like that. But for remote workers, there was no law, so it was really hectic. And when I tried remote working on my own, I found that this is not going to work. In fact, I found it so strenuous that I was like, screw it, I'm just going to go back to like an office-based work and work there. This remote thing, at least, I don't know, right now in India, it's not that viable. I mean, it might be viable financially, but the toll it was taking on my mental and physical health wasn't worth it. The freedom that I was getting as a remote worker. So then I decided that okay, then let's just start applying to remote jobs in foreign countries. So I heard of this trend, which I'd heard from my friends or something, wherein they got placed like sitting in India. They got jobs in countries like Estonia and Sweden and everything, and the culture there was completely remote. Like there were companies out there in the world wherein they don't have a physical office, and all their employees work from all around the world, and they are like completely distributed, and they team each people are there across different continents also, and somehow they make it work. These employees never meet each other, have never met each other in real life, and only talk to each other either on Zoom, or at that time it was Skype. uh, and somehow they're able to do that. So I was like, oh wow, this looks great. This is the kind of stuff that I want to do. So let's just try about for that. But at that point of time, this was 2019. Android and my forte was Android. Okay, I was an Android developer. And Android as a industry wasn't that much in demand or something, or it was like it wasn't that like it was easy to find Android developer jobs, but compared to say web development jobs, Android development jobs were very less. So on top of that, remote Android development jobs were very less. It was really hard to find that. And the thing about these remote jobs was that I found out that since there were very few remote jobs in the entire world, this was pre-pandemic. The bar was really high. Like you had to be the best of the best of the best in your field in order to get a remote job. It was like it was like the IIT IIMs of remote jobs. Sure, you can get it. It pays a lot. It has a lot of perks, but the entry is also higher. You need to be like really good at it. You can't be a mediocre person and just aim to get a job, even if it's a low paying job. Mainly because it's remote work, right? There's less trust, I think, at that point in time, because there wasn't a, a way for them to vet your work personally or something, because they are not in the same physical location. The bar was really high. So I thought that, okay, with my current skill set, I might not be able to, get a remote job or something. So I should upskill myself. So initially, I started looking out for all these programs, tech programs that which would, or boot camps or so, which would help me upskill in Android itself. And Android at that time, I don't know, I found very less. I just found one Mind, and I applied. I remember I was part of the first cohort. Right now, I think it's called After Academy, but Mindocs, MINDORKS. I'll just put in that later on mindocs.com. At that point in time, that was, I think, the only bootcamp in India offering a good Android-based what you call a bootcamp, and I attended it also, and attended it, and I passed it, and then I started applying to a lot of jobs, and I said, okay, fine. Now, yeah, now now I would be good enough. I'll be able to apply. Then after I started applying for jobs, Android and all these remote companies, I found out that a lot of these companies, they had now right now another requirement, wherein people didn't want Android people who could code in just Android native, but they wanted to code in Android React native, like as in the hybrid platforms. Why? Because they felt that if someone knew, if there's an Android developer who knew JavaScript, he could simply go to React Native, and he could also write the backend APIs in Node.js or something else, and then be a full stack developer. It was like the industry as a whole was shifting from a trend where Android itself was being coded not in native Android, which is Java or Kotlin at that time, but in React Native or Angular, all these frameworks which allowed you to code in one language and then deploy both on Android, iOS, and web or something like that. So that was another barrier for me. So I was like, okay, fine, now I'll have to upskill myself in this also. So I had to learn web development, which I didn't know at that point of time. All I knew was Java and Android, and a bit of Kotlin, because I think in 2019 Kotlin was picking up. So I thought, okay, fine, let's do a web development bootcamp also. So then I started looking at all the programs in India. At that time in India, this ISA-based bootcamps, the concept was really picking up. So in 2019 mid, I started searching. At that time, there were just like 4 or 5 of them. Right now, there are tons after the pandemic. Yeah, I'll cover the pandemic also, which was a huge enabler of remote work. But yeah, all this stuff that I'm saying so far, it's all pre-pandemic. Okay, don't forget it. It's all when at a time when everything is just normally people used to go office only, no one was remote work. So then started looking for boot camps. And then I found a bunch of them, a lot of them. I zeroed on 2 boot camps. One was called Ateneo, and I liked that, and another one was called All Campus. Now I liked Ateneo. Why? Because it was a online boot camp wherein you have to go. Ateneo, I think, was based in Bangalore or Hyderabad. I didn't even have to go to Bangalore or Hyderabad. I could just sit at home and I could, sit and study. And they offered that, hey, in 6 months we will train you. And that time it was also very attractive because they're like, we won't charge you anything for 6 months. And only if you get a job and have to paying a certain amount, then only you pay us back our fees or something. And they call this the ISA model. And it was good. I thought, okay, cool. And then we'll do this. And I almost joined Ateneo. All right. And then, so just when I joined Ateneo, I attended their introductory sessions and everything. And so just before like signing the ISA, which is like the final step before joining it, we had an AMA with the founder of Ateneo, like me and a bunch of other students, about 20 other students who were part of a batch, and they had an AMA. We just wanted to ask any final questions that we had. And in that, I just asked a very interesting question to the founder, like what is the USP of Ateneo? Like what Ateneo does, a lot of other boot camps in India also does. It's not that only you are doing a MERN-based boot camp. There are 4 or 5 other people who are doing it, and they're doing it as well as Ateneo is, and with the same structure and the same promise. Now, my question to the founder was, why should I join Ateneo over the other boot camps? And I gave him a list of boot camps, like 4 or 5, and told him like, could you just explain like why is Ateneo better than all of these boot camps, and why should join Ateneo and rather not them, because the structure and everything is similar. So he gave a good Divya McGoyle. He gave a good reply for all of the boot camps, and I even liked his answer about why Ateneo is better. But then regarding this all campus, this one particular boot camp, he gave a very good, interesting answer. He said that the difference between Ateneo and All Campus is that Ateneo is a completely online program. You can sit and study from your home. All Campus requires you to go to Dharamshala, which is in Himachal Pradesh, and be there for 6 months and study from them. They don't have an online model; they only have an offline model. And he said that he himself was a fan of All Campus and liked that model, but just that he didn't go for an offline model because it is not scalable. And he left with his final words that if you can spend 6 months in Dharamshala, and which is tend to be a cold place, especially in winters, it goes to 0 degrees, and you can do their course and get a job, then you should go to all campus. But if you can't, if you want to do a course from the comfort of your home, then you come to Ateneo, and that's what he left me with. And then I thought about that, and I was like, actually, you know what? Working from Dharamsala is not an issue for me, and the cold also won't be an issue for me because I lived in Delhi for 2.5 years, where it gets really cold. And plus, I had this habit while I was my 2.5 years in Delhi. I used to trek a lot. I used to go on a lot of treks because Delhi has this unique advantage that any almost every trek, Himachal Uttarakhand is just like you can like leave on Friday night and overnight first you can go and reach there. So I used to do a lot of treks during my time in Delhi and all. So I was also a fan of the mountains and I liked the mountains. And while I was trekking during my days, I also had this idea that one day I would want to go and settle in the mountains and stay in the mountains if I could. But of course I couldn't because at that time I thought I'm a software developer. There are no companies which are based in the mountains, software development companies. All of them are based in major cities. So that won't happen. But now here I was, hey, yeah, I can. Now there is 6 months I have. That's a program which is in the mountains, which is going to teach me software development and coding. So I thought, okay, cool, let's go for it. And that's how I went. So on 12th November 2019, I landed in Dharamshala. And so this all campus, it is located in a village called Thed, THEHR, which is about 10 kilometers from Dharamshala. By cab, it takes about 15 minutes. It's not in Dharamshala, but it's in a small remote village away from Dharamsala. So I went there and I did my course. It was an offline course. They had a campus there, they had a hostel and everything. And I did my course there. I finished my course 6 months also. And then even after 6 months, after the course was getting over, I was trying to look for a job and everything. I did get jobs immediately, which paid me like all campuses. The promise was they'll give you at least a job of 6 lakhs or something like that. But then I even got a job like that 6 LPA soon. But then I wanted to apply for higher and higher, and I was specifically applying for jobs. If yeah, so the timeline is very important. I reached all campuses in Ahmedabad 19, and when my course got over, it was around June, I would say June 2020. My course got over. Now, thing is that just before 2 months before my course got over is when the first wave started at March 2019, and there was a lockdown, and Himachal also had a lockdown. So even after my course got over, my plan was originally, if a COVID had happened, to go back home and then look for a job in Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi, and all the whatever hubs. But because of lockdown, I couldn't go back home. And on top of that, even if I could go back home, I didn't want to go back home because it was not considered safe for me. Because at the time, my hometown is Chennai, and Chennai was one of the leading cases of corona. So my family and everyone said that it is actually better for you to stay in this remote village in Himachal till this entire corona thing blows over. And there's lesser chance of you contracting COVID if you just stay there. And my village is really remote. In fact, when the first wave happened, nothing was affected in my village. Like no one even knew that there was corona. I mean, we knew there was corona, but in day-to-day life, we didn't see anything. There was a lockdown, but no one took it seriously or anything because the it hadn't reached the mountains so far. Like it was like, but dur dur se we knew, but there was no one we knew who had contracted corona. And plus, we felt that since the government has put a lockdown, no more tourists will come, and we are pretty much safe. So I would say, at least for, I would like fortunate in this way that first half of my this thing, I didn't have any of the drawbacks of corona. In fact, my life just kept going the same way and all. There was no difference in my life pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, at least for the first wave. All right. So I stayed in the Dharamsala, and then I was looking for jobs. And then because of this pandemic, this trend of remote jobs and all started coming up and popping up and all. And in that, this really actually approached all campus. It was called Big Binary. It was a completely remote company. All right. And when I say remote company, it was a company that was started in 2011 and was remote since 2011 from day one. Nothing to do with the pandemic. Even 10 years before the pandemic, they were completely remote. So the founder is an NRI who lives in the US, and all the employees are based in India, and they're based in different all over the country. And yeah, and we had a really good remote culture. And for 10 years, I've been doing remote, and it was also giving a good pay also. So I was like, hey, let's try for this. So I spent, and then they were in a different. So in all campus, I learned the MERN stack, but Big Binary works on Ruby on Rails as backend, and front end they use React. So I had to take some extra 2-3 months just to learn Ruby on Rails. So Big Binary itself had an internship program. I went through it. I learned Ruby on Rails. And then finally, in about December 2020, I joined Big Binary as a senior software engineer full time. And that's all. So from December 2020, and then after that, after I got the job, it was time for me to come back. And it was the time between the first and second wave where people thought corona had gone back. And I had an option to come back to Chennai and then work from that. But then at that point in time, I was like, I have been living here for about 1 year, and this lifestyle actually suited me. I was like, it is actually cheaper. It is much better for me to simply continue sitting and working from here rather than going back home. It was cheaper also. I'll tell you the cost later on. It
Hey,
was
Kabir,
cheaper.
your voice suddenly got lower.
Okay, is it better now?
Perfect. Continue.
Yeah. So it was. I thought that it is much better for me to sit and continue working from here. Why? Because one, the job was completely remote, and plus, since it's remote for the past 10 years, I know that even if the pandemic goes away, and the government lifts all lockdown and everything goes back to normal, this job will continue being remote. There is no concept of me going back to office or something, because we don't have an office to go back to. I mean, technically, Big Binary has two offices in Pune and Kochi, where it is a co-working space, so people can come and prefer to come and sit and work from office if they want to, but the default is work from home. So yeah, so I was like, I can work from here. Plus, I'm used to it since I've been 1 year. I've seen, like, I'm kind of used to it. to living from there, so I know what are the chances or not. And I was used to the cold and everything. My body is warm and everything. And plus, it was also cheaper. The cost of living was really cheap in Dharamshala, and it was also closer to, like, say, Delhi or Delhi, which or Chennai. Like if I have to go back home, I just have to catch a bus to Delhi, and then from there I just catch a flight. So I could be there also cool. So I thought I'll just continue living there, and that's what I did. So since December, I just basically stayed at the place I was staying in Dharamshala, and for about a year I have been like fully working remotely. And yeah, and that's like been my journey so far. Okay, right now I'm not in Dharamsala. Right now I'm in Delhi. I'm actually going back home to Chennai for 2 weeks because my parents are like, it has been 2 years since you have been there. Like, come and visit us and spend some time. I was like, okay, fine. So tonight I have a train from Delhi to. So yesterday I caught a bus from Dharamsala to Delhi. Right now I'm in a cafe in Delhi, and tonight I'll catch a bus train and I'll go to Chennai and then spend 2 weeks there. So that's how it has been. My journey has been so far. And yeah, so and then let's see. Okay, and then let me, now that I've told you, okay, we're about 40 minutes in. I'll okay, now I'll also tell about what I like about as having someone who has lived both lives, both the remote workers. I think about 5 years I lived as a non-remote worker, and about 2 years I'm working as a remote worker. So I feel that I'm qualified to look at things from both sides, and I know, like, what's it like to work as a remote and non-remote worker. So I could tell you the pros and cons of such a life. So personal pros, I would say, is one is being a remote worker. It's introverts heaven, which a lot of people. I think someone in the Twitter thread mentioned this, and I like this phrase. Yeah, it is an introverts heaven. So I get to work from my home. I have an option of meeting people if I want to, or if I don't want to meet people, I can still stay at home and do my stuff. And I have the flexibility to work at my own time. So the company I work in, it is actually fully remote. As in, when they mean remote, they are remote. Like, I just have to log in 8 hours per day, which means I can work from night 2 a.m. to morning 8 a.m., or I can work from 2 p.m. to whatever. I just have to log in 8 hours per day. How I work out, when I work for the company, it's all up to my own discretion. My company doesn't have any fixed times or anything. But we have some processes which help us make sure that this work goes smoothly despite people working in different time zones and everything. I'll get back to that later. So yeah, I like this lifestyle because it gives me the freedom to set my own timelines and decide how I want to work and decide my interactions with people. Because an introvert, I take strength not from meeting other people, but I take strength by spending time with myself. So for me, it's emotionally draining when I have to meet people. I do meet people, of course. I have to. You can't live an isolated person. But here, at least here, it is not. It is by choice. I'm not forced to go meet people that I don't want to when I was a non-remote worker. So that is the biggest plus. Next is amid nature. So I will. Okay, a lot of people wanted to have photos of where I live. I don't take much photos. I have an Instagram account, but I haven't posted. That's all my trekking photos only are there. I don't have any photos of where I live, but I will share one more Instagram account of one of my friends who lives in Dharamshala. He lives with me. Basically, he is one of the close friends of the founders of All Campus. All right. So he lives with them, and he lives like 5 minutes from my place. So his Instagram account, you will see a lot of like photos of where I live. I'll post it in the link. His name is Ashik. You can look at the Instagram account. All his photos since to 2020, they all are basically of the village that I live in. So all the photos that you see in his Instagram account, it will all be okay. Let me just share my screen and show you a bit of relevant photos. Uh, share my screen. Share my screen. Share this. Share this. All right, you can guys see my screen. So okay, not this. I would say, yeah, this is taken right very close to all campus. This place is like 5 minutes. This is a field which is like 5 minutes from where I live. And yes, you can see snow-clad mountains from where I live. Then I'll tell you. yeah, and then the place where I live, it's actually a farming village. There are only two main businesses over there. Either people have an hotel for tourism or they farm. So it is, you will find farms like this. Again, this is like 5 minutes walk from where I live. And no, not this. Yeah, and then you'll see some videos. It is filled with like greenery and all that. So which is also I like. I'm with nature. Like wherever I see it's either it's trees. I mean it's mostly trees only. It's all trees, greenery. So as someone who has lived in Delhi, which is the world's most highly populated in terms of air pollution, which is a leader in India. From that coming to here, it is a heaven. Like I can actually breathe and all. So sometimes I feel that if I come and just stay here, by staying here in 2 years, I've kind of undone the damage that Delhi sir has done to me in like past 2.5 years. So yeah, so I can see this guy's photos, and it's pretty much the same. I think all the way till no, I think you can go all the way. Yeah, 2020, whatever he came about 2019, 2018, he came over here. But yeah, you can see his this thing. All right. So that is there. And then you're amid nature. And then the other thing that I like is, yeah, like I mentioned previously, I'm a trekker. I go on a lot of treks. That is like my major pastime. So it being a remote worker from the Himalayas offers me two things which makes it easy for me to trek. One is I am in the mountains, so it's easy for me to go to treks. And plus I'm a remote worker, so I have more flexibility about my timings and when I want to work, how I want to work. And like I said, so this 8 hours per day is not strongly 8 hours per day. The strong what you call limit or my requirement is I have to work 40 hours per week. So technically I can shift this around here and there and all and do this. However, what the company I worked in is a service based company, so they require us to have, like, say we work for clients, that should be like 1 or 2 hours every day overlap between you and the client. But apart from that, your own timings are your own timings. You can, shift it around here and there and work it, which makes it easy for me to go and do, like, say, a 1 day trek or something. For example, say that I have to do a trek on Friday and Saturday. Friday's work, I can push it to Sunday and all, and and do it there and work it out like that or something like that. And then another thing I like is, yeah, in Delhi, while I was in Delhi, I was part of a board gaming club. I used to play. That was again my predominant pastime. So I used to play a lot of board games, and Delhi is just like 6 hours bus away. So a lot of, even right now, what I've done, I do this a lot. So sometimes when I was bored on Friday night, I catch a bus to Delhi. Saturday, Sunday, which is fully off for me at my company, I play board games at a cafe, and then on Sunday night, I catch a bus and go back home. And that which is I like, which is there. And yes, again, it is really cheap. Just to give you some ideas, I live uh, in a, like in a 1 RK kind of setup. I think one room kitchen thing where I live. It's a homestay. It is like part along with this thing. No, it's not a room. It's a separate, I would say, like the guest house or something of an already existing family. And I live in one of the rooms they rent out, which has an attached bathroom and kitchen, and the rent for it is just 3,000 rupees. To give you an idea, an equivalent house, if I had to get the same thing in a city like Delhi or Bangalore, it would cost me about 8,000 rupees. All right, so it's like really cheaper. Food, I get it. Like, so I have a, so there is an auntie who gives me food. She cooks at her homes and then she delivers it to me. Home cooked meals three times a day, and she charges like 3,500 per month for that. All right, which is like again extremely cheap. And then my electricity comes around, LCD Wi-Fi comes 1,500. So I would say in 10,000. Okay, what typically took me about 20,000 the lifestyle to maintain in Delhi, I can easily get it in 10,000 in Delhi, in my village. And when I mean 10,000, like in 10,000 I can live like a king in my village. It's not like in 10,000 garib ki tarah hai. In 10,000 I'm living the most luxurious life that you can literally get. And what I like is also the internet is really good. One of the things which enabled me to work is there. So in my village, it is actually a village. When I say village, there's not even ATM there. So for an ATM, I have to catch a cab and I have to go to the next thing. If, for example, right now my Mac has what you call its battery is out or something, now I have to get it repaired. I have to go to okay, I'll get to the pros cons later. So yeah, the pros is it is really cheap, and then again, ambient nature is really healthy for me. Like for example, the water I drink, it is literally, it's not corporation water, it's literally from the mountain. So I walk a bit to my like some 1 minute away from my house, and then there is a pipe which just comes out of mountain, and water just comes out of it. That water is just water that's trickling all the way from the top of the mountain, and it is like continuously keeps going 24/7, and that's where everyone uses that water. That water we use for washing, drinking, everything, and that water is as pure as it gets. Like that is the purest water. It's literally coming from this thing. So I have clean water, I have clean air, I have good food. For example, the milk I drink also. So my landlord, she has a cow, and then I get directly I get directly the cow's milk and all. So it's really healthy also. So in a lot of ways, this is kind of good. All right. So these are things that I like, and the reasons why I decide to stay here, permanently or something. Now I'll come to the cons. Cons is yes, it can get socially isolated. Like for example, with regards to friends, I would say that I had the only friends that I have in my village are the people who I did that all campus course with. All right, and all of them they came with the course. They stayed here for 1 or 2 months and then they go back home. For them, they are fundas. They come here, stay here for 1 or 2 months, but then mostly they stay in their hometown or wherever they are in the country. Mera ulta hai. So I spend 1 or 2 months at home, and most of the time I stay in the Dharamsala. All right. So for me, it kind of for my personality, it kind of set, But I'm sure that for a lot of other people, this might be an issue that the social isolation will get you sometimes. After sometimes you will start craving that I want to go and meet people. And especially like, there are people in my village also, but the biggest issue that I see is that there are people that I can't relate with. Okay, now this might sound a bit elitist, but I'm sure that for more than 90% of the village population, my monthly salary is more than the yearly salary. So just to give you a context of how, and then so they're very simple people and so I do speak with them and try to, talk and interact with them. But at certain point, you start feeling that, oh no, I want some city going people who have had my kind of upbringing, and I can speak about things like say music, art, crypto, investments, and stuff like that. If I speak these stuff to the villagers, matlab, they won't have no idea what I'm talking about. Sure, they will try to keep up with, but then I will start looking like a very obnoxious and arrogant person if I start talking all this thing that bade baate in their words and all stuff like that. So that I do. So for that to make up for that, I do that by this. So whenever thing is that I spent 2.5 years in Delhi, which was good. So I have a lot of friends there. So whenever I feel that things are getting a bit boring, I just catch a bus or go to weekend to Delhi, catch a bus, go spend time with there through board games with my friends, and then come back. So if you are planning for a remote life, this is something that you need to take care. And plus, I am an introvert, so it gels with my personality. But if you're not and you're someone who is an extrovert, then this is something you need to take care of. All right. And again, in my village, there is no pubs, no bars, no theaters, nothing. No outside activity. The only outside activities you can do is take a walk, either to some nearby waterfall or some nearby a field, or whatever. Or there are a lot of mountains. If you like me, I just go on a trek, day hike or something. You can do that. And the next is yes. Again, if anything I need to do, I have to go to the city and I have to go to like a proper city. For example, I need to renew my passport. No, I can't do it from my village. I have to go to either my home, which is in Chennai, which will be expensive for me, because then I have to. So one other thing is there is an airport close to where I live, but air travel in the mountains is generally expensive because it's considered a very risky thing. The pilot is flying through mountains, something. So just to give you an idea, if I have to catch a bus from Chennai, where I live, to all the way to my Gaggal, which is an airport about 1 hour from where I live, it'll cost about 13,000. But yeah, but the cheaper thing that I do is I catch an airport from so a flight from Chennai to Delhi, which costs about 6,000, and then a bus from Delhi to my place, which is about 1,000 rupees in this thing. So the point I'm trying to make is if I have to get something, for example, like a passport or laptop repair, my max battery is going. In whole of Himachal, generally Himachal is not that doesn't have even the capital where I live. Dharamsala is supposed to be the capital. There are no Mac report centers. And all. I have to go all the way to Delhi and then go and get there. So big stuff like this, you will have to go to the city. You can't get it done over here. So, but then the good side is that these things are not frequent. Like passport, once in 10 years you renew it, right? or laptop repair once in 4 years you might repair or something like that, or maybe maximum once in a year. So for that you will have to go to the city or something. Big things like this stuff that just to give an idea, I would say that you have to get your laptop repaired, or you have to get a passport renewed, or anything that you need to go and visit a bank or something, or some official stuff. Yeah, you have to go. So that is the drawback, which things that I took for granted while I was living in a city. Okay. And yeah, the third thing is it is far from my hometown. It's expensive by flight. The only way I can the one way that I can offset is, since I'm a remote worker, I basically catch a bus to Delhi, which is like 1,000 rupees, and then from Delhi to Chennai, I catch a train, and that works out for me, because right now after pandemic, a lot of even in the train I can work, because a lot of cities in between have good connectivity, so my phone's 4G works, so I can somehow work it out, but that might be a hassle. um, okay. And okay, so this is there. Okay, I'll give 6 to 6:30 the questions. Before that, I'll just give a bit of pointers. Okay, if someone who wants to go to a remote working and then wants to shift to that, someone who just say has just recently got a remote job and then they live in a metro, and then they just want to go to this place like mine, either in the Himachal mountains or generally somewhere else. And then just some pointers that you need to look out for. I'll tell you. So, firstly, whichever place you choose. So, I'll give you a list of the most famous places that I know where a lot of people go for remote working. One thing is, if it's in the north, it is somewhere Dharamsala, of course. When I say Dharamsala, it's not exactly Dharamsala. It is villages in and around Dharamsala. Like, for example, there's my village, Ted. Then there is a village called Naddi, which is next to McLeodganj, the touristy part of Dharamsala. Then there is Rakkar, and then yeah, and then in Himachal, there's also Manali, which is a hub. Then what else? Shimla, no. Then there's an area called Palampur, which is kind of more famous for remote workers, because it is in Himachal in the mountains, but it is a city. So people feel that, oh, they are more comfortable. It has much more amenities than say a village like mine or Nadis. So that is there. Then I would say down south there is Goa. A lot of people go there. Goa there is. Then I see people living out of Pondicherry. Then, and these are people where I'm talking about places where it is a good place for both remote working, and there's already a remote working culture there. So you'll find other remote workers like you. Then I know people working out of Udaipur. I'm not sure why people, okay, but maybe they like the distance. There's Udaipur. Then there's Jaipur. Then in Tamil Nadu, not much. Bangalore also, no, not much. Karnataka, yeah, I would say pretty much these are the states I know. Okay. So yeah, now if you say that you are deciding to go to a remote location and you're planning to work from there, what are things you need to take care of? First thing is internet. Now this is, of course, it's a given. You would need internet to work, but it is really really important, because you should know that you won't be using internet just for your work. Since you're a remote worker, you'll use internet for everything. Say you'll use it for work also. You have to make a call and be in touch with your family. You will use the internet for your personal family relations, also keeping in touch with them. For entertainment, you will use it for Netflix, Prime Video, because you will have nothing else to do in a village or remote place. Almost everything will go on, will be on the internet. So you need to be at a place where there's a good, reliable internet. I would say that's something that gives you at least 15 Mbps on average. There are places who give you 50 Mbps, great, amazing. But I would say, at least as someone who has lived, so in the village that I live, there is no Wi-Fi. There is one Wi-Fi provider, and they provide high-speed Wi-Fi services. According to them, the high-speed Wi-Fi is 8 Mbps. That is like, high speed according to them, because they just use internet for UPI or something like that. So I use my 4G, which one thing that enabled me to stay in the village is the 4G in my village is really fast. It is like Airtel 4G gives me around 10 to 20 Mbps depending on the time of the day. Jio also gives me 15 Mbps. I have both the SIMs and I switch between them, and they are really reliable. Like in that Airtel 4G, I can do Zoom calls with my boss who's in the US, and crystal clear and everything. It all works fine. Netflix, Prime Video. I mean, I won't get 4K. I'll get like HD or UHD or something like that, which is fine by me. And I heard that in a few months, Geo Fiber is coming to my village. So yeah, then I should be able to get faster. So whenever you're going to go to a village, you need to make sure first that the place has good internet, so you need to make sure, like, I would say that personally go and go to that place. So say that you found that, okay, a village in Manali, you want to go and stay there. A good pointer is that if you're planning to go there, the best way is actually to for you to personally go there and check it. Like, go to Manali, stay there in some hostel, like cheap hostel, which maybe like 400, 500, stay there for a few days, and then see the internet on your phone. Okay, so in all these places, remote places, especially in the mountains, you might not get Wi-Fi, but you'll definitely get phone. Airtel and Jio, these two, what you call brands, are really good. Like, you get network almost everywhere, and you get like good network in mountains, like at least 10 Mbps. Nothing like in the cities and all. So go to this place and check on your phone this thing, the internet. And the next another thing is deliverable pin code. Yeah. So one other thing which enabled me to stay out of here is that Amazon delivers to my this thing. So anything I want nowadays, you get almost anything on Amazon, right? So I can just order it, and almost 99% of the products they deliver to my pin code. So even all any expensive stuff, or I have to get like a PS5 or something, which I have to get, I'll get it down delivered all the way to my village because Amazon delivers that. So check that area is in the deliverable pin code. I think you can just log into Amazon, or so generally see for Amazon or Zomato. If Amazon or Zomato can deliver to a particular pin code, it is a given that almost every other player will be able to deliver, because Amazon and Zomato, they use, I think, delivery and the biggest players. So if they can deliver to a place, it is assumed that almost anyone else, anything else you can order online, will be able to deliver to that place. Okay, there will be logistics for that. So that is another thing you have to see, that is deliverable, that goods will be delivered to you. Because right now, the post-pandemic thing, everything is online. I don't think people are going to go to shops anymore. Then, okay, away from city and close enough. So it has to be away from a city, because if it is close to a city, like if I had lived in Dharamsala, it would have been hell for me, because there'll be like all the tourists and the noise, and because of tourists, there'll be a lot of issues. For example, recently, I think last year or something, Shimla, or some state in Uttarakhand or Himachal, practically ran out of water. All right, they didn't have water, and for this thing, and because of the tourist influx and all, and they even uh, prevented tourists from coming out for 3 4 months. It was a proper touristy city, and the city was shut because it ran out of water again, because of the entire tourist crisis and everything. So you don't want to stay in a city or something like that, because it has a lot of issues because of tourists. It can be either the noise, it could be due to the yeah, it could be due to the noise, it could be due to the nuisance or something, tourists coming and doing something, or because it's a touristy place, the prices of your rent and all will be higher, it'll be much more expensive. So you want to stay away from a city, but not so, but at maybe at a 5 to 10 kilometers, so that it's a place which is a village, which is quite secluded, you can do your stuff. But at the same time, if you have some emergency, like you have to go to hospital or something, it is close enough, and you can easily go and get there with a cab or something like that. So this is what I see most of the remote workers doing. They don't go, like, even if they're going to Goa, they don't stay in main Goa. They go to some village or some beach, a secluded beach, which is about like away from the mainland Goa thing. And then, of course, as far as the mountains are concerned, electricity, water, and food is not an issue. I find water, because we get directly from the mountains. Water is never an issue. Food also, yeah, you get the. I'll get to this. A lot of people ask me about what is my cuisine. And then electricity, it depends. If your place in the mountains is some place which has a lot of snowfall, then electricity will be an issue, because when it snows and all, the lines get frozen, and for 2 to 3 days you might be out of electricity, and you will have to do with it, make do with it. And it is not that it is something that people can't do anything about it. If the lines are frozen due to snow or this thing, we literally have to wait till the snow melts so that we can go and repair it. All right. So you are at the mercy of nature in the mountains sometimes. If you are in a place that has extreme weather conditions. So where I live in my village, it doesn't snow. So it's good. It's only at about 5,000 feet, which is like really less. It snows only in like in the mountain, top of the mountain. It doesn't snow. The rains are not that much. Sometimes it rains. Like it rains maybe only for 2 to 3 months. It rains really a lot. So that time electricity power cuts go off, and you can't do anything about it except maybe get a inverter or a UPS or something. But that is also something not to worry about, because in my experience, I would say that in a year there must have been just maybe 2 to 3 days wherein I've had a huge power cut of more than 4 hours or something. But generally, it's always I've seen 24 hours, 24/7. I get LCD. LCD is not an issue. I'm saying if you don't live in an area where it snows or the weather is not extreme, it should not be an issue. So I would say, like, try to live in a place, if you're planning to live in the mountains, some place below 8,000 feet, because 8,000 feet and above is when it starts snowing and it's considered high altitude and everything. So Manali setting is about 8,000 feet. So yeah, that during the winters, a lot of my friends, they don't stay in Manali. They come down to much a lower altitude place. So that is there, and prefer homestays. All right, why? Because homestays, it will be one, will be cheaper. You will get much more authentic and healthy food and everything. You'll have expense. Like I said, right? I get like milk directly from the cow. I get home cooked food, and plus you have a family which is kind of like a home away from home to take care of you in case something else goes. If you stay in a hotel or something, you won't feel like you're living in the mountains. You'll feel like you're living in the hotel in the city itself. वो mountain वाला feeling नहीं आएगा. So it's a preferred homestay. So there are a lot of people, like a lot of like homes in the villages, wherein they would be happily glad to rent out, at least if they have a big house, an entire room to you, or an entire like structure to you, or just a room to you, and for a reasonable price. Because like I said, the 3,000 rent rupee I'm giving them, it's a huge amount for them. In the city, 3,000 rupees is like nothing, but for them it's good. So comparatively, because of that purchasing power parity, you will get like a good home or something like that in this thing. And now, because of the pandemic, they know that there are a lot of remote workers are coming. So I've seen a lot of people like renovating their homes and making changes just so that to lease out a particular room to one particular person or something like that. So that is that. I would say I prefer homestays. I can give an entire session on how to live here, but we don't have time right now. If anyone wants to reach out to me, you can feel free to reach out to me either not on Twitter, either on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'll share the links right now, and then we could get on a call or something and do that. And I could guide you more about how to live here, what all things to look out for, and blah blah. Or if you want to come and live in my village, also I could help you out with that. But that's later. Here I'm just giving you some basic tips because you're short on time. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for my end. We have about half an hour left, so we'll just open it up for questions, and you guys can ask me general questions, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. Okay, the Slido link. Wait, do we have? Okay, we have questions. Let
Kavi, do you
me.
want to like take like a quick 2-minute break? You have been speaking for like almost an hour now. Maybe you want to have
Okay, okay, then let's do this. Okay, so in this 2 minutes, you guys can. I'll take a break, and you guys can. There's this Slido link. Just post your questions. I'll see the top mosted questions. I'll try to answer them all I can till 6:30. Cool.
sure. Let me try to do something in the meantime. Can you stop sharing,
Yeah,
Kavi?
yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, let me add a poll. Okay. Cool, folks. So in the same Slido link, you will see a poll which asks you what to identify as. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Okay, sharing the link again. Cool. So just want to see the breakup of a current audience. Okay, I see 20 responses, 21, 22, 24. Other folks who are on the call, it will take just a few seconds if you can just fill out the answer. Yes, Mohit, introverts are winning. We have 73% introverts here, 74 now, 75 now. Oh my God. Okay, this is like a very attractive talk for introverts. Yeah, like Kabir said, uh, sometime during the session, this is introvert heaven, and he has sort of convinced me enough to at least give a try. I might do that later this month, and I'll take up on Kabir's offer to. I'll just maybe go to his village and see how it goes.
Yeah, even okay. Yeah, even if somebody does not want to uh, relocate permanently, it is good for like 1, 2, 3 some months. It's really good. And the photos that Kabir shared, oh my God. I thought I'll just leave this session and go right away.
Yeah, Purnima says ambivert option is not there. Like, do you really think people are ambiverts? I'm a strong believer either you're an introvert or an extrovert. Either so how do you get energy? Do you get it like how do you best recharge? Do you recharge by spending time alone, or do you get recharged by talking to people? That is how you identify yourself. It's not about how you talk. Like as much like I can put energy while talking to you, and I can fake it, and you might think I'm an extrovert, but internally I'm an introvert. Like this just being on this call is draining for me. And after this call, like I'll not do anything for at least 30 minutes because I need time to recharge. So yeah, I'm an introvert. Uh, cool. Take us along. Yeah, like if you're really serious, I think we can plan something together. I'm going for sure. This is like FOMO max. Rohan asks in which village he's staying currently. Kabir.
Okay. Okay. We will. Yeah. I've seen. I'll first try to take the Q&A. 1 second.
Yeah.
The questions.
You want to share the
Yeah.
screen, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah. I'll share the screen. This
Over to
one.
you. Let
All
me
right.
highlight.
Okay. What
Yeah.
about networking and ideas that you get when you're surrounded by intelligent folks and remote for just alone? This is a great question. And I think this is the question that I get asked a lot everywhere. Now, yeah, like I said, the place that I live, it is not only a remote village, but it's a village surrounded by simple minded folks. They're either farmers or they're just like hotel operators. And while I do speak and interact with them in my own way, like I said, I would, have this thing that, I need to speak with much more people with different tastes. Basically, I wouldn't say like, I don't want to sound obnoxious, say people who are intelligent. Of course, people who are intelligent, but their tastes are different. The taste and upbringing is different. And I mean, I need to speak and, interact with people who are of more types. For example, software engineers. Or if I am someone who's interested in music, or I want to speak with more music enthusiasts, something like that, which I take for granted in the city. So the only ways I feel is online communities. It's the only way you can do, because meetups, it is hard. I can try to go to meetups in Delhi, but then that is a tedious affair for me to go there. I already do that. For me, my meetup is my board gaming gang in Delhi. So I go to Delhi and meet them, and then that gives me my monthly fill of speaking with like-minded folks. Another thing I would say is online communities. I can share a few of the online communities that I do. So one community which I found out really early on was Remote Indian. In fact, I like the community really much that I became a backer of it. I think I was one of the earliest members. And let me just share the link. So this it's basically a Slack group, but it's super. Where is the chat? Yeah, so it's remoteunion.com. It's basically a Slack group for now, and you have but you have a good you have different channels there. You have a lot of members there. You can speak about different things, like for example, that's channel for work for home tools, like what are the tools that you use, what are the monitors people use, what are the chats that they use or something. And then again, there's a channel for people to discuss the different work locations that they live for. There's a channel for people to simply discuss finance. There's a channel for people to simply interact with each other, have random introductions. So I would say the Remote Indian Slack group, actually, I'm pretty much active as a leader, and that kind of helps me network and stuff. and that is for general networking, remote Indian. And then plus, I would say join some kind of for other interests, join there are many of them right now. Join some kind of Discord or a Slack group for that. For example, Swapnil has DX Club, or I think I'm sure he has a lot of Discord stuffs and all. You can contact him, and then or you can join all these committees. For example, for tech stuff, I join. I'm part of another program. It is not like a endorsement or something, but I'm a part of Skiller, and as a student, and I study with them, and they also I think have Slack group where I can discuss more of my tech stuff or stuff. And then plus, I'm sure that if my company also we have an own Slack where we also discuss stuff. So I would say these online communities, usually either on Slack or Discord, find your niche and join them because as far as I know, that is the only way. I mean, that is a drawback that you have to live with as a remote worker. Like you can't have your cake and eat it too. You want to be alone and remote and secluded, yeah, then you will have to make peace with the fact that yes, you will be in a place where there won't be another place and other people around you like you, and the only way to meet them is through online communities. So it's just a matter of curation. You can just like search for it or something. One thing I recommend is remote Indian, and another thing, another I recommend is this coffeemug.ai. I saw this website wherein they randomly match you with different people, and you can have like a chat with them also. Just search it like and like so it is basically like Tinder, but for connecting with people with like-minded interests or something. It's not a dating thing. It is a very professional thing. It is where basically everyone comes and says their interests and disinterests, and this website tries to match them and create one-on-one conversations between them, and then you talk and take it from there. There's remote Indian. There is Coffee Mug. What else do I use? Yeah, then I use a bunch of Slack and Discord groups, and then my company's group. Oh, yeah, but that's different. So yeah, I would say that that is the only way. Right now, a lot of them are propping up in India these communities because the demand for them is increasing more. So just be on the lookout on Twitter. I think on Twitter or something, and press try to join a community. That is how you need to do.
Kavi, you have a banner on Coffee Mug where it says invite friends. Do you want to quickly share your invite link in the chat?
Oh, okay, cool. Sure. Invite by email, write a message, invite by WhatsApp, invite by a social media. This is Twitter. Damn it, I'll just share it on Twitter and
You'll have a link, right?
there is no link.
Okay.
It's fine. I'll just share the tweet link.
Yep, you can share tweeting. That works.
Why is this? Oh my. Okay, cool. I got this link. Uh, Kabir one. Okay. All right. Yeah, this is my link. You can send me a request if anyone wants to speak with me, and that's great. Plus, if someone wants, okay, I'll share the calendar later. Okay. If anyone wants to, yeah, speak with me privately, I'll just share my Twitter and my. So everywhere I am Kabir4691. So it will be Kabir4691 on Twitter. On LinkedIn also, I'll be 4691 only. Yep. So either on Twitter or LinkedIn, you guys can ping me. I will, either of these, I'm generally available and I will reply to you. You also get in touch with me personally. So that's that. Next, hospitals. Yes. How accessible is the healthcare? There are no hospitals in my area. There is only a, I don't know what it's called. It's like a government hospital thing where there's a term for it. But yeah, a community health center. So basically, you just walk in. It's completely free. I think I remember the first time I walked in, I went in and I bought some stuff and I gave them money. I was like, it's a yellow fees. He was like, no, actually, Jen. It's like, why? Like, and then he was like, no, we are government, this thing. And I insisted that I give the money, but they were like, no, don't give us money. Like, and I was like, wow, they're really honest or something like that. And there wasn't any cameras or something, but they were genuinely honest. But there's only like all these government owned these things where you won't have you will have only like medicines or something, but if I have to go get a kind of surgery or something, then I'll have to go to town. And I think there's a Fortis hospital in Kangra, which is a nearby city, which is like about about 1 hour, 1 to 1.5 hours by cab. So yeah, that is there. So that's how we have to go. But generally, it's not like nothing like that. Like if it's not that I live in so remote place that if I suddenly get something, I won't have. I am close to healthcare and everything. It's just that it's a matter of time. Okay, maybe like a half an hour by a cab, I'll be able to reach a well-equipped hospital, which will help me do everything. Like for example, even if I get COVID, in 1 hour I'll reach a hospital which will have a ventilator and everything, and it will be fine. So that is there. Accessible is quite good, and my village is also well connected by road and everything. So transport is not an issue. All right. Next, insects or pests. Yeah. So even I was apprehensive about this. Short answer is you get used to it. So all the insects and pests, they look like menacing and stuff when I first saw them, but all of them are harmless. Because if the insects or pests were harmful, they wouldn't exist. Like the local villagers would have crushed them and something and stuff. There are a lot of insects, but like for example, I find in the monsoon seasons and all, sometimes I open my room door and then there's a frog over there in my room. And I don't know how it got inside the room. It somehow got inside. Then there are beetles which are flying, not flying cockroaches, flying beetles. And but all of them are pretty much harmless. That there's nothing dangerous like snakes or anything or scorpions or something. I think one of my friends found a scorpion in his room, but the scorpion was more afraid of him than he was afraid of the scorpion. The scorpion started running away. So it was good in that way. But it's nothing to worry about. I mean, there will be insects, pests, but you get used to them, and 99% of them are harmless. And even if 1% of them turn out to be harmful or something, they bite you, don't worry. Here, the village is really helpful and all. Like they'll help you out. People will just go to any walk village and say that I have something. They'll help you out. It's nothing to worry about. All right. How do I tackle unwanted bugs? I just pick them up and throw them, like not throw them, place them outside this thing. They are mostly, like I said, most of the bugs are more afraid of you than you're of them. Like if I touch them, they'll immediately coil and they'll just freeze. They'll pretend like they're dead. I just pick them up, put them out, and that's it. I don't. Some of my friends, yeah, crush them and kill them, but I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't have to do that, so I don't do that. How safe is it for women? This is also a good question because, for example, in the boot camp that I was in, I would tell you the ratio of it. I think the time that I was there were about 30, 40 men and just one girl. That's it. That was the ratio of it. But that was it for the all campus. For the females, I would say it's a very safe village for the women in mind. Why? Because I feel that my village is a matriarchal village. In fact, it is the females who are more the head of the family than the males I see. For example, in my own where I live, my landlords, they are so they have a house and then they have 2 rooms, like 3, 4 rooms that they have rented it out, and then they have a farm, and then they have a taxi service. Now, the only thing that the father, the husband manages is the hostel. The wife, she manages the farm, she manages cab businesses, she manages the children and everything. In fact, I see the auntie more what you call working around and more active, and uncle just seems to be sitting in one place and just like I don't know. He's a retired army professional, but and generally a lot of places I've seen is that this village is a matriarchal village. Here the females work more than at least either they work as equally as the male or they work more than them. And never in any household I've seen where the female is just a docile and the man is the head of the family. You see, it's always so. In my village, yes, it is completely safe. For example, I've seen a lot, not for people I personally know. I've seen some what you call some other tourists like female solo travelers coming and just staying here for 1 month and then going without any issue or something. I would say it's very safe for women. At least if you are more concerned about that, you can personally ping me on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'll get in touch with you and I'll make sure that if you want to come and stay here, uh, you know, put you up in a proper accommodation that I know. So don't worry about that. At least I am not saying this for all of Himachal or all of this thing. At least for my village, it is completely safe for women. In fact, I feel like more women should come and stay here. Very few do. But anyways, then hospitals have answered that. How do I? Okay, I can't click on something and make it a question. Okay, employees complain more. Okay, so this it is not more about when it's a remote work. I would say that this is about the office and company culture. All right. So companies where they do double the work when it's remote are most of it the companies that will do double the work even when they are not remote. All right. It is more, it is not that, oh, now that we become remote, we're making a company do more. It is mainly because a company doesn't have proper policies with regards to how to enforce remote culture. They don't know what to do or how not to do it, and hence they do it. For example, my company is a completely remote culture and it has a very strict rule wherein you have to work 8 hours per day. Like if you log more than 8 hours per day, we like your senior will get in touch and ask you like why are you logging more work on that. Not that it is a sin to work more, of course we want you, but we are very specific about this, that we don't want you to overwork or something like that. So again, that is a company culture, because in our mind it is that we are only paying you for 40 hours per week, and you're working as 40 hours per week. That's all you want. We're not going to make you work overtime. Sure, if we have to work overtime, we will make it overtime, but only on very extreme situations or stuff like that. And then, but basically, as far as I worked in all the companies I worked, I haven't faced this issue where only one company I had to face it. I think the Chennai company, where again it wasn't a matter of overworking. It doesn't matter. They didn't have a policy with regards to how much time you have to work or not. So this isn't a remote work related question. I would say this is a company culture and policy related question. It is about how good a company values its employees, how good a company takes its policies, or how good a company cares about its employees. So it is not nothing to do with the remote work, that once you're remote you'll work more or something like that. So I would say that. I would say if the way to what you call, if employees are complaining that they would only have to double the work, have a chat with your manager and say them, I'll work only 8 hours per day. Put your firm. I mean, if I was in a company where they asked me to work, I would just firmly put my foot down and say, I'm just going to work 8 hours per day. You're paying me for 8 hours per day, and I'll just work 8 hours per day. I won't work a minute more or less, and that's it. I mean, that's my views. Uh, so yeah, so it's right. Okay, how to look for, okay, this talk is not about that, but I'll try to answer it. How do you look for search for remote opportunities? Right now you don't need to search for remote opportunities. Almost every opportunity is remote right now. So that is answered. But specific sites, I just put my sites on the normal platforms, LinkedIn, Twitter, and I have a Medium account where I think where I post blogs. I haven't done in a long time, but I would say right now, LinkedIn, Twitter, Medium, it's enough. And just make sure that you have a really strong profile in all of these. And when I say strong profile, don't just create a profile and leave it. Like add stuff and all over there, and make it stuff that makes it look uh, interesting. A good way is that you should want to hire yourself when you look at your own profile. It should be like that. I don't want to go more into that, but specific sites, yeah, good projects under your belt. This is again, that is something like to do. Of course, you need good projects under your belt. I would say that have a good portfolio website wherein you put your at least 3 or 4 projects which are live and hosted somewhere, so people can literally see it. And if you can also host the GitHub source code of it and then add the link for that, so people can both see your live work and they can see your source code and they can make a better decision. What's the modus operandi? Yeah, that is another whole session. And contact Swapnil Srivastava. He has Swapnil Agrawal. He runs a boot camp which will teach you how to do this. Anyway, any advice how to handle the first? Do I need to lot of help from others? Uh, I would say try to be more. Okay, so I'll tell you. So in my company, how we manage remote work. So I said that my company has been remote for the past 10 years. And how we manage to manage is that we do a lot of emphasis on written work. The fact that you document and write everything. For example, one of the policies that you follow is that daily you just have to work 8 hours per day. But the end of 8 hours, you have to sit and write what you have written. Like a good saying that young company said, you work 8 hours per day, spend 8 minutes and try to write down properly what all you have done for the day. So basically it should be like really that descriptive that just by reading it, anyone should be able to know what you did for the day, and I don't have to get in touch with you or message you or ask you any doubts with regards to what you have done. So this is a process that try to follow both. You follow, everyone in the company should follow this. So let's say that if a senior really writes down what he has to, what he wants from his seniors, juniors to be done, that will be more clear. And similarly, for junior writes down what he has done, the senior also has more understanding of what is done. So try to have this habit of noting down or documenting and writing down whatever you do, and don't depend on this fact that, oh no, there will be a time when I will get on a call with him, a verbal like audio call with someone, and then speak with them. Because usually when you're auditorily speaking with someone, there's a lot of fluff. Like even right now when I'm speaking, there's a lot of and then I'm sitting and thinking and this thing. So something that could be written down and read in 5 minutes, if I have to say it verbally, I would take at least 15 minutes. All right. So if you need first few months, try to develop the habit of writing a lot, and putting out down your questions in written way, and also expecting them to return in a written way. And I think that's how you can really reduce it. I mean, I know this answer seems very vague or something, but I don't know how to answer this question. I would say that you try to develop a written culture, or a documentation culture of documentation. That's how at least we do it in our company. So in our company, we follow this asynchronous mode, wherein we don't believe that say that if I send someone a message on Slack, I don't expect that person to reply now immediately. That person can reply whenever he wants to, but his reply should be really good and precise and as verbose. He can freaking write Ramayana in an answer to. If I just ask him one question, he can write. There's no limit to how much big he can write. But we prefer that they write more so that there's less need for us to get into meetings or anything. In fact, in a company, we despise meetings. We try to reduce meetings. The meetings are the last resort. Like my boss, he hates Zoom calls. It's like he gets on a Zoom call only when he has to. It is something that he can't put down in an email or in a written format or in a Slack message. So I would say, yeah, try to develop this habit of writing and getting everything done in a written manner rather than a verbose manner, rather than audible manner. Network issues. So I don't have network issues. So electricity is very consistent, like I said, and I have two Airtel and Geo. Generally, they don't. In my village, at least, they're very consistent. And if, in fact, I don't even need Geo. The Geo is as a last backup. My Airtel 4G itself works really good. In the cities, I know it might not work well, but on the mountain, somehow it works because there are very few people, right? Like one tower is shared by, maybe in the city, one tower is shared by 1,000 people. There in the village, one tower is shared by 10 people. So even the speeds are really good. In fact, I think if I log in like at 2 a.m. or something, I even get speeds of up to 30 Mbps. So yeah, that works. And no issues. Okay. Next, how does remote life affect networking? That we have answered. The remote, join remote communities. Oh, something you'd recommend the beginning of someone's career. This is something. Okay, someone who has lived a non-remote life for 5 years. I would say that if you can. No, so the answer to this question depends on the future. If there's a future where I feel that people are going, if you feel that in your future there's a point where you will get back to work, you will get back to work from an office and you'll be asked to come back home, then prefer it. Else, if you feel that you're going to work at a company that is going to be remotely living, or you're going to be in a position that's going to be remotely working at least for the next 5 years, there is something that as I would say, try to get used to online networking, because that is going to be the norm, right? What's the point of trying to learn something which you know is going to fade away anyways? All right. But because there are some two kinds of people, I feel. There are some people like me who got into remote working and love it. All right. And prefer that as I arrive for the rest of my life. There are some people who are forced into remote working because of pandemic and can't wait to get back into the office, and they're like, no, I can't work sitting from home and stuff like that. So I would say for the second kind of people, yes, I would recommend that you learn offline networking. But if you're someone that doesn't have to, or feel that you don't have to, then it's not necessarily required. You can very well much do even without having to offer network offline and learning how to do that. That is, I would say, a relic of the past right now, hopefully. Anyways, do you think the remote working culture, it is too early to say? Because from what I've seen, I think it is. Last year I would have said that it is here to stay post
Hey, I
pandemic as
cannot hear.
well. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. So last year, I said that the remote working culture, I would have said would have stayed, but suddenly I found that a lot of companies are calling back people to the office, even tech companies, which I was surprised, like Google and Microsoft and all. I thought that they would be happy. We are saving on rent and everything, but they are maximum a hybrid policy. So I would say that there are two things. If your company's model requires you to show a high headcount, yes, then people will call back. For example, I think the switch companies like TCS, Wipro, they work on the model that the more employees that we can show as headcount, we can bill higher number of employees, right? Or they have a clause wherein if the employees working remotely, then the company doesn't pay them. So it depends on the kind of company you work in. Some companies' model is that they have to call people to the office and then only they can generate revenue. So you will have. But then there are companies, if you're working for a product-based company, I would say, wherein there is no requirement for people to come to office. These kind of companies will decide to stay remote, especially because they save a lot on cost and they save a lot on time. So if it's going to stay post pandemic, it depends on the. It's too early to say. I don't know. Right now, I would say 50-50. I would say that 50% of companies would say will be remote, 50% will go back. But again, it is too early to say. The trends are very confusing for me at times. So how long do you stay that as such? Oh, I am from. So I always consider myself when someone asks me where I'm from, I'm saying I'm from Himachal, and then they say you don't look from Himachal, and then I go into the extended answer. But I plan to, like I said, a lot of people, I basically plan to settle here. Like right now, my this thing is that if I could pay, I would have bought my home where I'm living in and stay there. But unfortunately, Himachal comes under government lands, so only Himachal people can buy this thing. The only way I can buy property is if I marry someone who's from Himachal and then I buy it in my wife's name. Or there is another way in which I buy it in some other person's name and then lease it for 99 years to me. I don't think I'm going to live more than 129 years. So that is there. I plan to stay here like forever. The only reason I will leave Himachal is if I'm leaving the country. But yeah, Himachal will be my base. Sure, I mean, I will go and maybe stay somewhere else, but my base, my permanent address will stay Himachal for the long term. Mainly because I would say the main reasons. One is that it's really cheap, and secondly, it's really healthy for me. A lot of other cities are becoming saturated in terms of pollution and space and resources and something. And third, also, I am someone who likes the mountains and likes to trek in a lot of there. So living in the mountains makes sense for me. It's much more easier for me to pursue my hobbies. So yeah. Next, okay, this may be high expectation. How do you manage the cravings for? Oh, I am not a foodie. Another thing, if there's an opposite for foodie, I would be that. So for me, like, I'm not a food person. So I think once, like, if you don't put salt in my food, I won't notice it. I'm that kind of person who won't know any difference and all. Favorite food, yeah, yes. So for me personally, it worked out. But if you're someone who's a foodie and wants to come in the mountains, I would say yes, there is a limited availability about your favorite foods. For example, uh, fish. You only get trout fish here. If you're a Bengali, I had a Bengali roommate for about a year when I this thing, and he always used to say that I miss fish, I miss fish, I can't get fish here. So yeah, it is some food and all you won't get it there. But the good thing is Zomato delivers to my place, so you might get it from some restaurants here and there. The only thing is it will be too expensive, because then these people, if they have to get fish, they have to export it from somewhere and then make it and then deliver it to you. You won't get most of your favorite foods over here. You'll only get seasonal foods, like, I mean, things that are grown within 100 kilometers or stuff on that, there you'll get it. But yeah, and other stuff, if you want, the only way is for you to order it either through Zomato or to Amazon or something. Yeah, locally, I don't. How you got the first thought? Okay, that is covered. Okay, did you teach? I wanted to teach the village kids that in my free time, and once I got a job, I planned it. But then the pandemic basically screwed all my plans. All the schools are shut. Everything is there. The only way for me to teach is through online, which I'm planning to do soon. But if yes, there was. pre-pandemic, some of my other seniors in my old campus, they did teach village kids there in their free time. They did that. But I also want to do that, but I couldn't do that because, well, because of the pandemic. I mean, schools are still closed. I think they'll open in my village. They're still not open. They might open earliest maybe only next academic year, March or something, March 2022. South Indian, no, you won't get any South Indian food. I am a South Indian. You won't get dosas or anything. Even Zomato, there are no South Indian restaurants where I live, so you will only get North Indian food. Like, I mean, of course, you'll get rice and anything, but general North Indian food, roti and sabzi. That is the staple food that I get over here. And the non-veg, I just get chicken. You won't get mutton. Yeah, I get chicken and fish. I get trout fish easily, and other kinds of fish again depends on your Zomato, this thing and all. So I would say if you want to really go to Zomato, put your area as Dharamshala, and then see all of these things. So all Zomato restaurants in Dharamshala deliver to my village, and that's about the only food options that I have, and any dehydrated food that I get from Amazon. That's it. Uh, cool. Okay, that's the questions are done.
Hey, Kabir. Hey, it's me.
Yeah, yeah, we can start with audio questions. Cool, cool. Good.
So I had a question. So just more or less like, so once we move to a place, right? How do we keep our gadgets and expensive things, safe? In the sense that once we move to somewhere else, we don't know the people around us. Or let's
Mm-hmm.
say, you said that you were staying at some place, and like, how do you go out? Like, do you take your expensive stuff with you when you go out, or do you just keep it there at your home itself?
Mm,
You know.
well, yeah, that's okay. Nice question, Yadin. And yeah, by the way, Yadin is he works also at, I think he's my colleague at Big Binary. Glad to see a lot of Big Binary guys here.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So it is a matter of normal trust. I mean, it is like, say you go to live in a PG in Bangalore. Now, if I ask you the question, where will you keep your expensive stuff? What would you answer? You would say that it depends on the trust that I have on the person, right? So generally over here, I would say that people are trustworthy. Like, I'll tell you this: I don't lock my door when I go out. I haven't locked my door because generally I don't know, people in Himachal, they are very honest in this thing. It is not like a city where I am someone who have lived in cities, and the two different cities, like a very unsafe city like Delhi also, and a safe city like Bangalore also. So I know what you're saying from. So generally it is very safe. I would say that I personally don't lock my door at all when I go out or anything, and I have expensive stuff. I have a Mac, I have a monitor, I have a GoPro. I have like a lot of enough stuff that people can sell or anything, but no one does it. I mean, they want. It is not even in their like mind. They're like very simple village people. So I personally don't. I mean, and if you can just lock your door and go. Like you will get your this thing and all right. So that is it.
Right. Yeah, I have one
You don't
more
have to
question.
you don't have to worry about someone breaking into your room and then doing it. Don't worry. And even if
Yeah.
that happens, I have full faith that if a thief comes into my area, my villagers will chase him down and thrash him down. Okay, so that is that. I have good influence in my village for that. So yeah,
Yeah,
that is that.
yeah, yeah. That answers the query. I have one more question. So, how much in the sense
What?
that if we don't know Hindi, can someone stay there? If we don't
Uh,
speak good in Hindi, then can someone, manage it?
in my village, if you don't know Hindi, it should be fine. I would say you can. I mean, like you're also working in Big Band, you're a remote worker, right? So you don't need to step out. The only thing is you need English maybe for food or anything. You can still stay here. If I because of all the all campus people I know who stay there, most of them are North Indian. There was one guy from Kerala who stayed there who didn't know Hindi. I'll contact you to him. His name is he's from the Big Band. Oh shit, Rafi. Yeah, Rafi
Rafi
stayed
Gamar.
in. Yeah, Rafi Gamar was all campus. He
Oh,
stayed and then ping him basically. But from what I know, even without Hindi, you can stay. A lot of people I know who don't know single word of Hindi can come and stay. Because like, what would you need? Like, tell me like, what do you think you need Hindi for, and I'll tell you if
I don't know.
that is
Asking
anything.
directions, maybe.
Uh So if you're asking for directions, oh yeah, that might happen. But don't worry. I mean, people know at least basic level of English,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
it should
sign
be fine.
languages work, I guess.
No,
Except
not sign language. I mean, it's a touristy place, right? So they are
yeah, yeah.
used to a lot of tourists coming who don't know Hindi. So you will manage. Don't worry. If you want to like come and stay for 1 month or something, that shouldn't be an issue. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Hey Kabir, Shobit is here.
Yes. Hi.
Hi. So actually, I sometime like in that type of village, like electricity gone like 3 and 4 days. Then how at that time how you manage that?
Not 3 and 4 days, 3 and 4 hours. Maximum, I think the maximum, I think the LCD gone I have seen is from morning 12 to night 8 p.m.
Okay.
But even if it's in the sea, this kind of long electricity, if it's usually the government tells you before, you'll know when it's going to go or something. And again, since we're remote, I'll know कि 12 से 8 तक electricity जा रहा है, so I won't work there. I'll work before itself. I'll
Right.
just drop a message on the channel that hey, I'll be out of this thing. If you see, I drop it in and out channel, na?
Mm-hmm.
And so generally unannounced electricity cuts, like I said, they're very rare. Like once or twice in a year only they go, and maximum I've seen is they go for like say maybe 8 hours or so.
Okay.
Not that much.
So you never face this type of
No,
problem.
no, never.
Okay.
LCD is always it works 100% with no issue.
And one more question, like as I knew that you are going to join the People Farm. So have you joined it? People
People,
Farm.
People Farm, I don't have
Yeah.
time. I planned to go there, but I didn't have time, and I have to join back on work on December. So yeah, maybe next year. Not this year sabbatical. This is not happening. In the next year, maybe I'll join People.
Okay. Okay.
But yes, it was on my bucket list to go and spend some time there. But and People is quite close to where I live. Also, it is like maybe I don't know, say maybe 2 to 3 hours of a drive. People Farm.
Okay. And also you are taking some type of course, I think it's postgraduate and some type of course you are taking like.
Ha, that is different. That is upgrade, but that is let's not discuss that.
Okay,
We'll
okay,
discuss
okay,
that
got it.
separately.
Okay, no problem. Okay, thanks. Okay, yeah.
Cool. Sure. And, yeah. So this was. I mean, I can continue doing. Let's time closer to 7 p.m. So we'll wait till 7 p.m. if any questions, and we'll answer them.
I just
Let's
dropped
see.
in
I'll
the
try to
chat.
answer them.
I just dropped in the chat to see if anyone has any question. They can raise hands. I
Okay.
don't see any hand raising as of now. I think most of them put their questions in Slido. We have Ashfaq.
Hi,
Okay.
Kabir.
Yes.
Oh, hi, Ashfaq. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, so what are the extreme weather conditions that you have faced there, like monsoon? How bad does that
Okay.
happen?
Okay, it's extreme in terms of okay, I'll tell in terms of cold, which is of course minimum. I think it goes to 0. Okay, and that will go in about December or something. So and that is fine if you have like enough cold, like 2 to 3 layers. That is fine. It never snowed. I think in my 2 years, it only once I saw it snowing, and it was like when it snowed, like everyone came out of the house because it was like we said like Panchega in 5 6 years it had snowed for the first time and very little, like that snow fell melted away. So it is not like a proper snowy place. So in as far as cold, it's only like, and it's Dharamsala is not even that high. It's only 5,000 feet. It's not even considered a high altitude place. Generally, in mountains, high altitude, you consider something 8,000 feet and above, like Manali and Shimla and stuff like that. And rain, yes. So that's a rainy season in. Wait, is any all campus guy here? Okay, no one is here. But there is a rainy season, but it rains like 2 to 3 months, and I think the maximum it rains when it rains like 4. Like for example, if it rains less than 12 hours continuously, we don't call it rain. We just call it drizzling. So generally, if it rains, we call it raining when it rains somewhere continuously from 12 to 16 hours. So that is there. But that happens like again, maybe only for 2 to 3 months. It happens which months I would say uh, July, August. June, July, August. Only in these 3 months it rains, and and it's not even and it rains. It is during the what you call summer, right? So it's not even that cold or something. But the point I'm trying to make is it is not an hindrance. It's not like city when it rains and the roads get blocked and stuff like that. The only issue is that people don't go out because, like you must heard in the news, when it rains, it becomes more prone to landslides. So people don't go out. I think this year when it rained, there was a huge flood, and village also got swept away. But that happened once in like 20 years. Like I know one of my like cab drivers, he's about 50 years old, and he said that this is the second time in his life he's seen this much rain which happened this year. So again, it is not like something that happens every time or something. It's like once in a blue moon. Nothing to worry about. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, let me see if there's any question in the chat. How about when there's any calamity? There's a lot of no. That's not. I mean, it's fine. Like there is no calamity. My village is not a calamity prone place or something. I would say. Like I said, that landslide has happened last year. It was like once in a 20 years thing, and we bounced back pretty soon. I mean, nothing happened in my village. In my village, at least all I know was that it had rained continuously for 16 hours, and that's it. And then life went back to normal. So nothing else. Last call. Anything else? Anything else? Let's see. Questions. Uh, wild animals. Oh no, that there is. So wild animals, I think maximum there are bears in my area. I haven't seen. They say that in night, if you're lucky, you'll see a bear crossing from the top. So my house is like it's on a hill. So if this is a hill, my house is here. So sometimes depending on the weather, the bats will go down and up and down. But they do it when they try to do it when they're not human. Only at night. They try to stay away from humans. I have not spotted a bear so far. People who spot a bear generally say that if when they spot a bear, they simply stand and do nothing. The bear will keep going ahead. Like the bear will attack you only if it thinks that you are going to attack it. So when you see a bear, either pretend dead or simply stand and think that you're depressed in life and like don't move at all. It will just go away. And if the bear has kids, then just be really still, because when a bear has kids, it is very extra protective. It thinks that even a slight movement thinks that you're trying to attack this thing, and it will eat you alive. Okay, like the bears are really protective when it comes to their cubs. So far, like I said, bears go only in the very late night, and if the place is really dark, most places in my village are literally they're proper, like on the night even the lights and all are on only, so it's fine. Unless you go to very like unless you really go somewhere into the forest looking for a bear, you won't find a bear. So yeah, that's fine. Anything else? Can you recommend about okay fine session? Okay, a lot of people saying they want to pack a bag. Yeah, so if anyone wants to visit my village or stuff like that, again, ping me on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I am generally active there. I should reply back in a few days. Or if you're joined the Remote Indian community, ping me on the Remote Indian community, because there I can tag relevant people who will be able to reach along. That will be better. So I would say, yeah, just join the Remote Indian community and ping me there. That would be best. Then. Palampur, Chandigarh. Yeah, Chandigarh has repairs, but I don't know. I just Delhi is familiar, so I stay in Delhi. Half the cost of living a bit looks so beautiful. Heaven, introvert 7. Okay, cool. That's it. If no one else wants to ask anything, I think we can just end the session.
I really loved how you sort of went through all the chat again at the end, just to make sure we don't we didn't miss any question, and that really speaks to how passionate you are about this topic. So yeah, I loved hosting you, and we will just do some closing rituals now. Folks, this is DX Club, where we talk about non-tech aspects of our jobs. If you liked it, let us know on Twitter. This is our handle. Tag us, tag Kabir. In case you made notes, I think there were some things that I noted in during the Q&A sessions, what to do, how to start, and all that. So if you want to share some learnings in a thread or whatever, just tag Kabir, let him know. And if you want to just try it out, then just connect with Kabir and maybe go to his village for 1 week or two.
Yeah, everyone is welcome. So if anyone wants to do it, I have hosted a lot of my friends like this previously also, like people who say, and then ranging from 1 week to 1 month, I've hosted friends, like arranged for them and everything and all. It's a quite nice village. So yeah, feel free to do that. So I would love it because it's a breath of fresh air, or meeting people for me also. Personally.
For sure. Yeah, and you'll get a feedback form from Luma. I think maybe you would have received it already. So let us know any feedback you have for the session. If you have a topic in mind that, again, it should be non-tech. I don't really enjoy talking about tech. So if you have an interesting non-tech topic in mind that you would like us to talk about, just tag us on Twitter, let us know, and we'll make it happen. And if you are passionate about like a very particular thing, I would love to have you as a host. And this is like directed at Shritam that we need you giving a talk, on what topic. Cool. I don't want to put anything on the spot, but yeah, okay. Let's end it. Yeah, Ashfaq has put it. So yeah, if you want that talk to happen, just tag and just talk it out on Twitter, and we'll make that happen. Cool. So now we'll play some music. So I think we need to stop the recording so that it doesn't get flagged. So yeah, thanks for joining in. See you next time.